I went to the national forest. Yes, this is very much the land of Smokey the Bear. Smokey the Bear was not some nudist. It was the name of the mascot for the Forest Service's effort to stomp out every single forest fire there ever was, even ones caused by lightning, and even if they got started on a rainy day. The result of this policy was a forest with a very heavy fuel load. When a forest fire did get started, oh boy did it ever take off and just rip through the countryside. I should get down off my soapbox and tell you about preparing for this trip. I got my free outdoor fire permit from the National Forest. You have to get these because even things like Coleman stoves, etc., are considered a campfire for legal purposes, and you have to have a permit if you're going to have any kind of fire. Preparing for this sort of thing, you have to be aware that Google Maps and things like that kind of suck when you get out into the national forests. You need to get some actual real paper maps. And this does sort of lead me into a digression. A lot of people have heard of the French philosopher René Descartes. He's the guy who everybody knows for, I think, therefore I am. He is also the guy who came up with a thing called Cartesian coordinates. This is that business that's very common today where we plot out things horizontally, calling that the x-axis, and vertically calling that the y-axis, or calling the horizontal part the longitude and the vertical direction the latitude. Before he thought of this, maps were a pretty big mess and were not scaled against distances. Thanks to René, I now have my map that is nicely scaled in distances, and I can move on to the topic of what I'm going to put in the car. And actually, René's son, Philip, comes into the story with regard to some of the things that I'm going to be taking with me besides the map. It was his son's view on what you should take with you on a trip that instructed how I loaded my car. I'm sure we've all heard of Philip Descartes. Well, I took everything. I even packed a bottle of whiskey in case of snake bite, but unfortunately I didn't pack any snakes to go with it. And my little pup tent and my great big dining tent, because as we all know, camping can be intense. Don't mind me while I climb back up on my soapbox for a moment, but thanks to global warming, Smokey the Bear, and a hopelessly underfunded national forest system, a fire had gone through and really made a mess of the place that I had really wanted to go to. So I had to pick an alternative. This extremely pleasant bit of video clip I'm showing here is shot in the place I wanted to go to, but I positioned myself very carefully to put all of the burned out trees out of frame and try to make it as nice of a picture as possible. I intend to return here again once they have returned conditions to something where I could camp here. While I have that soapbox handy, let me go off on a tangent about preserving the species that live in the wildlands that seem to be of no use to us. There is a cancer drug called Taxol. This was discovered by, and I'm going to butcher their names, Monroe Wall and Mansook Wani. I think I'll put that up in text for you to read. The generic name for the drug is paclitaxel. It is a chemical that was first extracted from the Pacific yew tree, Taxus bravifolium, Floria by the two people whose name I butchered earlier. The Pacific yew tree is an evergreen tree that doesn't grow very big, and it doesn't grow very tall, and it doesn't grow very fast, and it's pretty useless to the lumber industry. When a forest products company comes lumbering on the scene to spruce things up a bit, they tend to plant a monoculture, neat rows of exactly the same tree. If that had happened, we may not have that valuable cancer drug. Also related to the yew tree, two workers in the field by the name of Philip Bertram and his wife Hazel discovered that yew trees will not support combustion. They said that only yews can prevent forest fires. Others have said that Philbert and Hazel are just too nuts. The area I was in was also a place where Sasquatches, also known as Bigfoot, are claimed to exist, but I've never seen one there. One thing there is in this area is big tall trees with huge pine cones on them that the squirrels harvest by nipping them off and letting them fall. When they hit the ground below, it makes an enormous crash, and you would swear there's some huge animal involved. But no, it's just a squirrel. I may be no botany expert, but I can tell that those trees there are ash. This road I'm on served as a fire break. To the left, the forest is all burned, but to the right, the trees are untouched. I think I will end this now on this lovely picture of a madrone, or is that a manzanita tree? I never could tell the difference between them. So that I can get it uploaded, I will now stop adding stuff to this video.